one of my newest things I train on is that people need to start getting real comfortable with being uncomfortable because all these changes in the law, all these things, for the realtor who goes out there and says, "Ugh, I won't take less than this." Well, good. I'm glad you won't because there's somebody hungrier than you who will, and they're gonna interview well. And because they're hungry.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker with Daniel Berger. I'm excited to have on this week Alicia Holmquist, who kind of has a little bit of the same background as me. With over 20 years of sales and marketing experience, I'm happy to welcome Alicia on the show this week. Thank you very much for coming on.
You are very welcome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So, happened in the world, and you moved down to Myrtle right in 2020.
Yeah, spur of the moment kind of decision. My dad moved here 2 weeks before the world shut down in March. And it was his birthday. He had just moved here. He had bought a house while on vacation in February. We came down and we said, great, 5-year plan. And 5 months later, we were here. So that was the only sphere of influence I had was my dad. Nothing else. I knew nothing about the area other than I'd come on vacation a couple times as a kid.
And then I also worked for a coffee company for 12 years. And I'm only 10 years into real estate, right? So it's the same as you, where and it's also so you move from a market that you knew to a market that you didn't know in a new industry, and right, and you weren't in real estate in New England.
No,
And
I've sales based my whole life. I have been a photographer. I had my own photography business, so constantly selling myself. But I worked in two-way radio sales with two-way communication out of New Hampshire. That's like police and fire radios, building cop cars. That was really fun. I've sold lawn care. I worked for a company out of Maine and New Hampshire that did like lawn fertilization and like tick and mosquito treatments. I've sold dentistry. Like I've my and the funniest part is my degree is in early childhood development. So kind of a hodgepodge of all different things, but been in sales for over 20 years now, which is really weird to even think or say. But yeah.
which is kind of funny because all of those things that you just said are selling, right? Selling someone on all everything that you talked about is selling. We don't sell. We don't sell at least I view we don't sell in real estate. It's and actually your childhood development and psychology is much more useful. Now, I'm not calling our clients children, although that's possible. But the idea of getting into someone's head and understanding where they're coming from and the words that we use to help motivate them to do the thing, like selling is always when you have an item, right? And you tell them why they want your item, right? Because if you're competing against in a commodity market where your coffee could kind of be the same, I was in the coffee with someone else's coffee. Why does yours taste better? Or why is your source better? Or, what's better about yours? You're selling, you know, we're not really selling. If you represent a seller, we are selling the house, but really it's about communicating and interacting with other agents, with the buyers, getting the proper information, getting, from a buyer's standpoint, seller standpoint, getting in their heads, working with them to get their house prepared, have it, and getting them in the right place, right? So it's not really selling. And when you represent a buyer, you're not selling, you're buying. And so you're trying to make sure that you have all the information of what the house is and the area is for your buyer and giving them all the information that they need so they can make the decision for them to say this is the house that we want. We never tell them, oh, you need this house, right? It's more like they want the house, and what do we do to protect the buyer in buying the house in a way that is going to make sense for them, and selling, going through all the different offers and trying to getting to the closing table. So I think psychology is you've actually found your way, and you found a way that you can use your degree.
Very much so. I agree.
I also like what those jobs that you had are very independent contractor mentality, where people don't give you anything, right? You kind of have to earn it, and it's commission based, or it's you seeing what the game plan is out there, and then how are you going to do to sell. And that's so I kind of love that you're now 6 years in real estate.
So I'm
Yeah, you're
going
in your
into
fifth.
this, but yeah. And it's to think it's happened this quick and how fast I've scaled. I scaled very quickly early on, but last year I was able to double my production. That it being that fast is not normal for as an industry standard. We see a lot of people who struggle early on. And I actually 2 weeks ago started a team. So it's been a really crazy short journey, especially for somebody who didn't have sphere of influence or know the area very well or anything like that. It's been a big learning experience, big learning curve, but very exciting. It's always every day is a different day. I never get bored of it because it's something new every day, different problem to solve every day, new house to see every day. So it's a lot of fun, but it is definitely a whirlwind that has only like I think about it a lot and I'm like I feel like I started yesterday and now, you know, we're already halfway through 2026, which is even more wild.
Why do you think, in your opinion, why do you think newer agents, it's harder for them and it doesn't catch on for them? What's your view on that?
I think there's actually a mix of things. And I've been asked that question a lot. The last 2 years, I've been able to speak at Unite for Inside Real Estate. That's going to be like your Boom Town, your Bold Trail, your KV course. And people have asked when I talk about my story, why there's agents who either in the same amount of time or after me are struggling so hard. And I really do think it's a mix. I think that a lot of agents come in with this idea that a friend or somebody they know is doing okay and they don't fully understand out the gate that they are their own boss. They are expecting a lot of direction from maybe a brokerage that doesn't have a great training program to start you off at, or guidance, or a way to really focus you in on what you need to. And then, especially in the last couple of years where AI has become just this big thing and social media, I think it's really easy for an agent to start focusing on the wrong things really quickly. And I also think it's really easy to hear agents who've been in the industry for a very long time say, this is how I did it, this is how I grew it. But it was a very different time. And so much has changed, even in the 5 years I've been in, going into, six. It's real estate is changing faster, and our phones are a big part of it. The internet's a big part of it because it's in our hands. And when you have all those major sites that not everybody loves, right? We don't love the Zillows, we don't love the Realtor.coms or the Homes.com, but they are a greater evil and they are
See,
feet
I,
get on
I, I
board with
am
it.
not I am not a hater because ultimately, even if it's your listing, those IDX feeds are getting eyeballs on your property and helping sell your property. So if you're listing a property, why do you care if another agent besides you gets the lead? Ultimately, you don't always really want a dual agent, and your job is your due diligence is to sell the property. And
Hmm.
any way that it gets communicated out on other people's dime, right? Zillow and Realtor all are paying money for their search engines and they're capturing of people. So I have no problem. And actually, so I'm 10 years in. I started buying leads. Sim so I've been in this market most of my life. I've been here since 1997, but in other industries. But I felt similar to you, where in the sense I'm now it went bankrupt the company. It was a big, huge company went bankrupt, and my wife's like, what are you going to do when you grow up? And we're like, let's do real estate. So I was a new agent, not new to business, but new to real estate, and I started new. How am I going to be me and make my name in a town that already had people that have been doing it for 10 years, 20 years, 30 or 40 years? Why would somebody use me? And so I started buying leads. I used Zillow. I bought leads, you know, $4,000 a month, 5,000, whatever it was, because what that was people clicking on a property saying they wanted it. How do you then work with buyer? And it's easier, probably newer, right, to work buyer side because those are easier to capture that way. And then you start building a portfolio. You do five, you do 10, you do 20, you do 30. Now you also have friends and family. So So I turned Zillow basically into 55 transactions a year. I'm the broker, so I spend $12,000 a month on Zillow that I give those leads to my team. I actually don't take any of those leads anymore because I'm able to fund 55 transactions a year from the network of people that I've done over the first 5 years. And I think what was interesting is maybe in year 3 or 4, and I did 52 transactions, and 26 were buy side and 26 were listing. And that all happened from doing the work. And I think TV also is a problem because, like, $1 million listing and selling Sunset, they're sexy, right? They're really sexy. They're kind of fun, but while they call it reality TV, it's not really reality. It's more staged, real estate working for TV, and it's fun, but that's not really what our job entails. And so, it's hard work. And I see you moving into the market, you basically you're bootstrapping yourself and you're like, what am I going to do? And you're thinking about it. And no, I bet you no lead was too small for you, and you would work with people. And some people don't want to do rentals, right? My view is that you work with people, and people, doesn't matter what it could be, a land sale for almost no money. You do things because it gets you experience, and you learn things that then will help you down the road. And then those people tell people and tell people.
Oh yeah, and when I train, when I talk to agents, I ask what you're doing. And I even love hearing one of the biggest pet peeves I have. Not pet peeves, every market is different, but I'll hear people say, especially when I go to listing appointments and they already had it listed, they'll say, the agent didn't do any open houses. They said that's really just for buyers. Well, two things on that. One, why would you not want buyers? And if you're building a team or anything like that, then pass them off if you don't want to work with buyers. I will work with anybody. I don't care if it is land. I don't care if it's a $50,000 mobile. In our area, we have leased land. So essentially, you're helping them to buy a car. And then, all the way up to luxury property, I'm going to do the same amount of effort for everybody. Everybody, I'm here to protect your investment. I'm here to protect your money. I'm here to try to negotiate for you. One of my newest things I train on is that people need to start getting real comfortable with being uncomfortable, because all these changes in the law, all these things, for the realtor who goes out there and says, "Ugh, I won't take less than this." Well, good. I'm glad you won't, because there's somebody hungrier than you who will, and they're gonna interview well. And because they're hungry. So I tell people all the time, you're not going to find somebody hungrier than me, because I will not lose a deal, whether it is a buy side or a sell side, over a compensation. That's not why I got into the business. I didn't sit here to say, okay, well, I wanted to become a realtor only to make X amount with every single transaction. It has to be this percentage. That's not how real estate works, and it's not going to continue to work like that. Yes, I do believe when you hear people say fight for what you're worth and all of those wonderful lines that agents throw out, and I agree with it 100%. And I think you should fight for what you're worth, because I don't think many people really realize what we do in a day. And there is this like perceived notion that we close $500,000 houses and we make, 3 or 4% on every single one, and that there's no splits, and we didn't spend money to get that lead, and we didn't spend money on photography. And there is a notion that we're just making like, $20,000 every single time. But for the same person that I'm fighting to say, this is what I'm worth, and this is what I do, and this is what I bring to the table, and here's the communication I like to, always be in contact with you, things like that. There's somebody out there hungrier. There's somebody out there who is going to absolutely do all the things for less, because they need the $1,000. They're okay with just making 1,000 because they haven't made a
Or,
thousand yet.
and
Yeah.
it's, but so I love what you said about get what you're worth. Because get what you're worth, that's, of course. I have a story of last year, the highest price sale in my town on the MLS. Somebody, people went in to pitch it, and the house ended up selling for 3.6 million. And people were going in like 2% or whatever the percent was. And the sellers were like, Why should you make double the amount of money just because my house is more expensive? You're not going to necessarily, just because it's 3.6 doesn't mean you're going to do any more work than if it was 700,000. And so other people were like, oh, my brokerage won't let me go below X, right? And so, so somebody, I got referred in, I go in and they're like, they wanted to do it for 1%. And guess what? When I cash that check and I bring it to the bank, the bank doesn't know what percent I got, but the $36,000 that I took and deposited, that's my worth. And I will tell you, selling a house, the crazy thing was only one person went into the house and that person ended up buying it. So it was on the market for 8 days. Only one person went in the house, but that 36,000 was good money and covered my photos and all that other stuff. But it turned into more. Those people needed to buy a place. So those people ended up selling a place. They bought a place. Those people's parents are selling a place and buying a place. I got 4 transactions because I went to 1%. Percent is irrelevant. It's
Mm-hmm.
how much money is it going to be. And so that's what I love about real estate is that we're independent contractors. As my brokerage, I never tell any of my agents what they have to do for making money. I stress independent contractor. I actually have no employees in my firm. I have none, right? There's no admin support. There's no, none. I don't you'll laugh. I did 55 transactions for 40 million last year. I don't even have a transaction coordinator. So, so let's talk about you. So, do you have a transaction coordinator and when did you decide that you needed one?
Middle of last year. I do not use that transaction coordinator for every single deal, but I started bringing them in, especially, for example, we're at the end of June right now. I have X amount of deals already for July. There's going to be more. There's going to be stuff between the stuff that's closing and the stuff that goes under contract. We're coming into the busiest part of the season. So when it starts to get to the point of, okay, now I have 3 or 4 buyers under contract and I still have these closings coming up, or, I'm getting ready to list. Lately, it's been steady. It's like one a week, so that's really great. But when it starts to stack on stack, if it was all sellers, I probably wouldn't use a transaction coordinator very much because once you do all the marketing and you're doing the open houses, there's still a lot of time for your buyers, and then you can put it on your calendar and say the due diligence time or inspection period or all the things you need to remember throughout the 30 to 45 day close, whatever it is. Those things I think tend to become routine when you are doing 60 deals a year. It becomes very routine on what's next. You're not having to remember all the time because it's part of the daily thing you're doing.
The other question, are you a lawyer state or not a lawyer state?
We are an attorney state, yes. So
I love I love that because to be fair, in other parts of the country where you're drafting these documents and you're dealing with escrow, it's much more cumbersome. And I could absolutely understand that needing more of assistance to do that, right? And also the other thing is I love what you said that it depends, right? So it depends on your workflow and it depends on what the task is. Because I see that the reason why you're the duck and awesome realtor is because you want to talk to people. You don't want AI talking to your clients. You want to talk to your clients. You don't want, you want to be involved in the transaction. So getting support on tasks to move things along, you're still the quarterback. You're still running the show, and people know that, right? So,
yeah, my transaction coordinator is not licensed. So my transaction coordinator cannot do anything other than like send documents. He'll occasionally get an email or text from the client and it has to come right back to me. He cannot in any way, shape, or form do any kind of negotiating. It has to be dictated by me to him. So he's very much the background person. And when I do use him, when I do tell my clients, hey, I have a transaction coordinator, he's going to be involved. I let them know, like, you don't need to message him anything. That he is there just to keep the train on the tracks. He is not there to negotiate for you. He's not there to answer questions for you. He's not there to look at an inspection report for you. He is just there so that I can be on the road and he can say, "Hey, the inspection report is in. It's in your inbox." That's it. That's what he is there for, so that we can sit down and have more time. It's really just taking the paperwork out of my hands. That's all he does. There's nothing else with that. I am still very much involved in the transaction. Now, don't get me wrong, I have looked into transaction coordinators in the area who are licensed, because in this, especially in North and South Carolina, it would greatly free up even more time to be able to focus maybe more on fun social media and being able to schedule those kind of things, or diving even harder into whatever new referral network's going to be coming out. I am a big believer, when you're a new agent, that if a realtor is sitting there telling you don't pay for leads, don't pay for leads, then you should probably question where they're going to bring you leads, because they're not. They're just not. And you are your own boss. And I love saying it, and my broker and me joke around because we do chat about it. But I remind agents all the time, like, your broker's not your boss. Your broker is there to support for legal reasons, but your broker's not your boss. You're your boss. So if you want your business to be all referral based, let it be all referral based, because the Opcities of the world, the Realtor.coms of the world, Zillows of the world, I mean, there's millions out there. There's so many referral companies out there. There's different referral networks when you get into like veterans and things like that. And I laugh. I'm like, I find it really funny that an agent will be like, "I don't want to pay a certain percentage to somebody." But if you got a call right now from an agent outside of your area that said, "I have a referral, are you okay with X referral fee?" You're going to be like, "Yes." So why wouldn't you? I tell people all the time, the referral sources that I use, and I do use a lot of them, and that has helped me scale my business as big as it is. And just like you said, now I have a whole, I have almost 200 transactions of people. I can go back and say, "How's everything going? Do you still love the house? Do we want to sell the house?" And I've had, my very first transaction was a $65,000 transaction that they called a year later and wanted to sell, and they wanted to buy. They've already reached out again to possibly start thinking about selling. We're not at that point yet. They referred their son to me, and so a few other people to me as well. So within a very short period of time, their longevity, they've been $2 million worth of my time. And I do believe in following back up. I've had a lot of return business. I've had people come back in a short period of time because life changes. I've had people who've come back for investment properties because now they're ready to do that. I think it's important to realize early on, you do need to build a network. You need a solid CRM. You need to be able to put all of these people into one place, because if you're trying to remember just to keep up with them, you are absolutely not going to do that. So because I knew early on, because I heard early on, you got to build a database, you got to build a database, you got to build a database. I'm 5 years in, and when I talk to people and they're like, "Oh yeah, I've been in about the same amount of time and I have, 300 leads in my system." I'm like, "That's funny. I have 10,000." And a lot of that's my own. That's not anything my broker has provided. Now, there is stuff within the agency that is provided for lead generation, and I have used it, but that's not my broker being like, "Hey, we got someone who wants to buy or somebody who wants to sell. Can you take this one and go meet with them?" Like a hot lead. This is prospecting a 101 every single day. Before I got on the call with you, it was one of the things I was doing was going through and looking at who I need to contact today and who I need to follow up with today, and looking at those lead sources and looking at what lead sources need to be updated, because it's another thing I train on. If you're going to sign up for one, you better be ready to follow up, because there is so many agents out there looking now, especially with it being a quieter market, a harder market, interest rates up, all those wonderful things. There's a lot of people looking at these referral sources, and all it takes is your algorithm with the referral source not being great, and they'll boot you off so that they can give your spot to somebody else. And if you're not updating like you should and you're not producing like you should, they will give it away to somebody else. So it's a lot to do and it's a lot to remember. But if this is what you wanted to do and this is the career you chose, then if you're not doing anything, then 0% of zero is zero.
I agree, but I also will say that you have to do what makes sense. So we're very creative in this job, and you have to do what makes sense for you and what feels right for you and what you're willing to. I actually don't really have a database, right? So my database clearly is my phone. I've done stuff to communicate with my database whenever possible. I like to give things away on Thanksgiving because that's I like to say I'm thanking people for their business as opposed to making it based off of a holiday season other than Thanksgiving. I've done things where I've delivered for 1 year, I delivered 120 pies. I actually let them choose what pie they wanted. There was four things that they could have had, including cookies, and I hand delivered them over Thanksgiving. Then I'm like, okay, this is really hard. I can't really do that. Then I did, food cards that I would be able to send electronically. I did like really nice Remax blankets. Last year, I actually did something crazy. I wrote a book. I wrote The Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. So this is stories of the adventures with my clients. It's not really a how-to sell, but it's a how I did. And then I had a book party. So I had a book launch at my house, 150 people, tents, bartenders, barbecue. So I'm always sending things out, inviting people to things. This year I'm having not a book launch, but I'm having another backyard soiree, I guess, where it's like $15,000 between the tents and the food and the alcohol. But you know what? It's a way that I'm able to send messages out to my clients and stay right in front of them. But I do not have what you would say is a typical database, but everything is about connecting and letting people know that you're there for them and being available. So I think that's really good. I love when you talked about open houses. As I have a lot of listings. I have new agents. Some of them they're not available on the weekends for that. Listen, that's the free way to try to find a buyer, right? You're in a house, they come in, you showcase that house, but many people, most don't want that house. So you find out what they do want, and then you become their buyer's agent. And one of my agents has been great at that. She's probably sold 10 different people from open houses. That's 10 people, not including then that it's their friends and their friends. You know, I can't want agents to want them to be successful more than they want to be successful, right? They have to be the motivator. They have to put in the time. They have to, make the phone calls, be available. Zillow's not easy because, with Zillow, many times they say, I want to see a house in 3 hours. Well, if you're not available, then you can't do that. So, it's all about everyone's desire. And so, as the broker, you said it best. What I do as a broker is I do provide leads for them to help them grow their business, but I'm there to make sure that the rules are followed, right? That their local rules, their national rules, their state rules. That's the job of the broker is to make sure that, and then of course, every now and then clients might have complaints about things that have happened, and it's how do I troubleshoot those things? So those are the things that I do. Training, any of my agents can call me, they can shadow me, they can come to my office, they could watch me do what I do. I actually have no office meetings. I've never in 10 years, I don't have office meetings. So it's really, it's not for everyone, but ultimately everything that you've just said, you're your own boss, you do all those things. That's what our business is. What's interesting is we're in an industry with almost the least amount of entry barriers, right? You don't even need a high school. You don't even need high school. You just have to pass the test. You have to pass the test. That's like 75 questions. That's it. Then you're a real estate agent. Doesn't make you good. It just makes you legal. So we talk about lead sources, and some of them are good and many of them are bad because again, that's a low entry point that anyone can try to go in. And there are a lot of false ones out there. They're scammers. How do you know people are probably trying to sell you things every single day? How do you know what are programs that you want to test and what are ones that it just doesn't make sense? How do you go about doing that?
So when I first got started, I always like to joke around like I am an inside real estate like diehard. Part of that is because when I first started, my broker, what we were part of Boomtown, and so I've never known another product other than an inside real estate product. And their products have lead integration in them and they have lists. And that's where I started. They have lists of all the different companies that they integrate with. And if this national company, global company now, is able to have a whole list of referral sites that integrate with them, well, they've kind of already done the work for me. I just need to go in now and start researching each one of those. And that's essentially what I did. Every couple of months, I will also Google referral sources and I will look at some of the major players, I like to say, for podcasts, for real estate information, blogs, and I'll read what is supposed to be the newest, greatest, coolest referral source out there. And I, if there's an option for a pay at closing, I will almost always sign up for that without and with I'll just do it because there's no money involved
No
up front.
downside
So
to pay,
yeah,
right?
there's nothing that you're losing. So when it is some of the more complicated ones are the ones that have a monthly fee and a referral at the end. I look into those a little bit and I look into what the record, for closings are or what people are saying about it. But the biggest thing I am a true believer in is if it makes sense for you and you can afford it, you cannot sign up for something for 1 month and then say, "Oh my God, this isn't working. I can't do this." One, the algorithm for that referral source hasn't even kicked in for you yet. And the other part is I think we're under 2% now, but like the national average for a long time was a 2% conversion. So if you agents hear things, I think sometimes we have so much information coming at us and we're really good at math when it comes to certain percentages, but we hear all these analytics or we hear these statistics and our brain goes, okay, I can do that. But you have to start thinking in your head, okay, a 2% conversion rate a month is two leads out of 100 leads. That's 2%. It is two people out of 100 people converting into a sale. And what are you doing to put 100 leads a month into your system? What are you doing to follow up with 100 leads a month in your system? How are you maintaining 100 leads or not in a system like if you don't have a CRM? What is your process? And one of the girls I train, she does not use a CRM. Because I am a peer coach with Inside Real Estate too. That's pretty new. That's pretty exciting and awesome. But she does not have a CRM that she uses regularly. She has the sites like the realtor.com and the Zillow and things like that. So she just maintains by going back to those sites and updating those sites and staying on top of those sites. And she has a method every week to when she's following up again on those sites if she's not already talking with somebody. And then it goes into her phone once it becomes serious. For me, because I do have a CRM, I have a work number. And the way I like to put it is that most of my clients all have my work number until we are trying to buy something or we're listing something. And then it goes to my personal cell number because it is a little not much faster, but it is faster to get a hold of me that way so that they have the direct way to get me on the phone faster than anybody else once we are in that relationship, once we're committed to each other. But I think with agents, if they start realizing how much it actually takes to get to a 2% conversion rate, and then if the average person is still, they call you and they say, I'm ready to buy or I'm ready to sell, and the national average is 6 to 18 months, which I think recently got pushed out too. That's a long period of time before they convert. And learning how to stay in front of them and learning how to remember when you got to follow up with them. Those are all things like not everybody teaches you and not everybody explains how to do it or the best way to do it or ask you, how do you think you're going to do it? And that's one of the biggest questions I like to ask agents is like, what are you doing now? And when I see or hear how they're doing it, it's like, all right, well, how do we turn this into something that's going to start converting leads for you? Where are we dropping a ball or missing a ball? And then when I work with agents who say 100%, they don't want the referral sources. They don't want to have to pay at the end and they don't want to pay up front. Maybe it's because they're just getting started. They don't have anything to really get started with.
Your thing is that you analyze what's in front of you, you make proper decisions based off of what's best for you. That's what people need to do. The it's if you want a 9 to 5 job with healthcare and all this is not the right job for you, right? This is one that you're basically an entrepreneur and you're basically crafting and creating your own business. One thing I like to say is it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep, right? So it's good to have systems in place and budgets, and but also you have to be really self-focused and you have to really want it, because it's simple to say, oh, I don't have anything today, I'm not going to do anything, as opposed to pushing yourself. And how do I get open houses? Talk to other, talk to your broker, talk to other agents. How do you help them? How do you help showings? All things, you have to put things into your funnel so that you're going to have more work. But it's kind of a great thing. The other thing is certainly AI is something that's taking the world by storm, clearly, and also working in real estate. What have you done, or have you done anything to integrate AI into your business plan?
Yeah, so I ChatGPT is like my best friend. I actually named him and we have conversations all the time. I've used a lot of AI sources for social media stuff for creating it faster than I create it. I'm not that person who knows, like, I can use Canva. I'm not very great at like creating my own things. I'll create a couple templates and keep using them over and over again. But like like I'll ask different questions to help me with conversion training. And I'll ask ChatGPT to come up with 20 reasons why they shouldn't buy a house this month and use those to, and I'll use the feature to actually like go back and forth and try to create better scripts for myself. I use AI when my photographer comes out. My photographer is a whole media company, but in all honesty, if the client has decided, we're going to get negotiable about my compensation, I may not go out and shoot a $2,000 video on the property, but I'm going to use all the pictures that were taken and put it into different AI and create a video. I do believe that it is important to do those things for your client, and I believe you should be putting it on social media. But I think social media right now and AI has a lot of people going in 19 directions of how to use it and what they're supposed to be doing, when you can, at the end of the day, you could just ask AI, which is the great part. You can tell ChatGPT and Claude, I need this listing description for Facebook to be fair housing compliant. I need it to sound like me with a sassy tone. I need it to talk about what it's close to in the Myrtle Beach area, like the fun things or the ocean things, and then you hit send and then you reread it and you change what you don't like or what needs to come out or what needs to be added. And it does help. I think you should utilize it, but I don't think a realtor, especially a new realtor, should get caught up on using the million different things that are out there right now. Find the one thing that works for you. If it is creating videos or creating content, then create the videos and create the content. But don't try to do 19 different AI things that you hear on TikTok or you hear on Reels is working for an agent, because if you're not in their market and you're not doing what they're doing every day, you have no idea that they've actually posted 20 videos today and one went viral and ended up with 4 leads on it. It's about consistency. Everything in real estate is about consistency. If you're making your calls, I love to train in this area because we're a retirement area. And especially in an age where everybody wants to text message, right? We don't want to have to making phone calls sucks, guys. Like it really does. Like it's tedious. People yell at you sometimes, but it's part of the job. And for somebody who's retiring and needs glasses like I do, and you can barely see your phone some days, you don't want to see a text message on like, hey, are you thinking about buying or selling? Or hey, what's your plan over the next couple of months? You just want somebody to call you. You just want to have that conversation, because trying to read text messages is hard, or trying to read an email is hard, or technology is hard. In the last couple of months, the amount of clients I've had to go meet with a physical contract and sit down and go over it and sign it and then scan it and get it over and then deliver it to them because they cannot figure out their email, or they've gotten locked out, or they did something and ended up blocking me. Like all the different things. So if you're just trying to find a client, when, what did they, Buffini said it recently. I think it was Buffini that said it. Like the national average for somebody buying a house right now is like 67. So when you start to think about that, that person is not necessarily going to respond to your emails and text messages. They might just want the phone call. They're
Right,
prob
and they also might not be on TikTok.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so
They might not be on
so
any social media.
So what's interesting is all the things that you said are ways to help you do your job better. But there's another way that what AI does is I know from talking to a lot of my new clients, how do they find me? They find me asking Claude and ChatGPT, who are the best real estate agents in this area, and then they call me. So another use of AI is so I also do marketing to, so AI search is kind of Google on steroids. So I'm doing things that when people ask their phone who they should use, my name comes up. So I'm actually investing in AI that way, not to talk to my clients, but to have people when they ask their phone, who should they use, that my name comes up. So that's just a little side thing, but we could talk for hours. You are totally ducking awesome. Thank you for coming on the show this week. I love that in 5 to 6 years of time, you basically created your own business. You moved from up north down south. You in a different industry. You are motivated by your own energies and your own thoughts and how you want to create your business. It's the Alicia Holmquist business, and you're doing the best to it. Real estate just happens to be the avenue that you're doing it. But you basically every day you're motivated. You're motivated to help your buyers. You're motivated to help your sellers, and you're doing a great job out there. And congratulations. That not everyone can do that. It's very, our the failure rate is so high in real estate.
Oh, and
Because
I
people,
should have. I should have failed because in that 5 years, won't go deep into it, but in 5 years, I've lost two pets. I've lost four family members, one of them being my son. I was in a major
I,
car accident. My CRM that I count on so much had an outage for like 2 months. When you start looking at the overall of the 5 years and the amount of things that a realtor doesn't plan for, you don't get bereavement pay. You don't get a few paid days off because you need to fly out on a red eye to go to funerals and things like that. You got to keep going. It's your business. So it in an industry that does have a very high fail out rate, not only do you have to be consistent and committed, but you also have to be prepared for what are you going to do when you don't want to pick up the phone because you're going through something or you're injured. Like, where's your backup? But it's consistency. It's the end of the day. And yeah, I'm shocked. I'm excited to see what's going to come over the next 5 years. And like I said, I started a team 2 weeks ago, so we're starting to build that, and
it's
gonna be
quite
exciting.
obvious that it doesn't matter if the laws change, if AI does this, if the next thing does that. Alicia Holmquist will basically figure it out, will persevere. Your story could read, you know, it's easy to say I can't, but I'm going to say I can and just get it done. And but we need people like you in the business. Thank you very much for coming on the show this week. I appreciate it. People are going to love listening to the Alicia Holmquist story. I have. Thank you very much. And to everyone, this is Daniel Berger with the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. Thank you for listening in. Until next time. Thank you. If today's stories opened your eyes, wait till you see what's next. Hit the video on screen to join the next adventure with Daniel Berger.